Good afternoon. Welcome to this new lecture in our program on American literature. My name is CH13, and today we're looking at lecture number 13, and we're looking at Langston Hughes, Thank You, Ma'am. Langston Hughes, of course, belongs to the artistic and literary movement known as the Harlem Renaissance. He's one of the most prominent writers of this movement. His career began in the early 1920s and lasted through his death in 1967. Hughes wrote plays, essays, novels, and poems. Not Without Laughter, written in 1930, was the first novel he wrote, that Langston Hughes wrote, and is recognized as an important contributor to American literature in the 20th century. The novel is about Sandy Rogers, a young boy who awakens to the sad and the beautiful realities of black life in a small town in Kansas. Another important writer in the Harlem Renaissance is Claude McKay. His poetry was one of the great forces in bringing about what is often called the Negro Literary Renaissance. He is considered one of the most prolific writers of the Harlem Renaissance. Claude McKay used themes such as African American pride, alienation, and desire for assimilation in his work of fiction. He used the same themes in his poetry, and he also wrote non-fiction. McKay's most famous poem includes If We Must Die, America, and Harlem Shadows. As we said in a previous lecture, the Harlem Renaissance began in 1917 and ended in 1937 with the publication of Zora Neale Hurston's novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God. Their Eyes Were Watching God. Zora Neale Hurston's work made her one of the key players in the Harlem Renaissance period. Okay, well, today we're looking at a short story by Langston Hughes. It's called Thank You, Ma'am. And it's a short story about a young boy named Roger, who wanted to steal a purse because he does not have the money to buy the blue suede shoes that he wants so badly. So there is some new shoes in the market, and this kid, his name is Roger, wants to buy these blue suede shoes, but he doesn't have the money. He's poor. He's a young black man in America, and that usually means poverty. So he tries to steal a purse. And the purse, he tries to snatch this purse from a black woman. But instead, this black woman turns out to be a strong, very strong, and passionate woman. Her name is Luella Bates Washington Jones. She works in a beauty shop. And she showed him how it felt to be trusted and loved. Roger wanted the shoes, the blue suede shoes. He wanted them so badly. He would steal from an elderly woman to get these shoes. During his attempt to steal her purse, he fell to the ground and was forced to obey Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. She orders him, pick up my pocketbook, boy, and give it here. Now Roger, feeling ashamed and scared, she says, "Oh, your face is dirty. I got a great mind to wash your face for you." And with that being said, she dragged him all the way back to her home. When they arrived at her home, she finally let Roger go and stated that he should go wash his face. Instead of punishing him or calling the police or beating him up because she's a physically strong woman, she decides, she grabs him by his clothes and drags him to her house. And once they get in, she let go of him and orders him to go wash his face. And although Roger could run through the open door right next to him, he could run if he wanted to, but something inside him told him not to. So he decides to walk to the sink. After a few comments are exchanged by Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones, she turns around and begins to cook a meal for the two, for herself and for Roger. Not paying much attention to Roger, he noticed she had left her purse out and the door wide open. So again, he could just snatch the purse and run, and she couldn't catch him. He could easily steal the money and leave. But again, he decided against it and sat down on the opposite side of where the purse and the door was, just in the range of vision for Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. He went and sat on the other side so she can see him, right? So he puts her at ease. He didn't want her to feel suspicious. The food was done. The food was done cooking now, and the two began eating. The conversation wasn't about the boy being a thief, or about him not having a family. I mean, Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones didn't sit there and start shouting at him, "Why are you stealing? Where's your family? Why?" She just let him have dinner. And the conversation focused more on Mrs. Jones. After they finished eating, Mrs. Jones handed Roger $10 to go and buy the blue suede shoes he wanted. She walked him to the door and wished him a good night. Although Roger was extremely grateful and shocked, the only words that came to his mind, that came out of his mouth, were, "Thank you, ma'am." So this is basically a story. It's a very simple and powerful story. So it's simple, but at the same time it's complex. Let's begin with the title. Thank you, ma'am. The title suggests that someone feels grateful for somebody else's behavior and thanks her, or that someone appreciates something done by a woman and thanks her. Thank you, ma'am. It's an expression of gratitude, of thanks. The setting, the story is set in Harlem. It's a famous neighborhood in New York City in the 1920s, and at night. It's about 11 o'clock at night in Harlem in New York City. When Mrs. Jones says, "Shoes got by devilish ways will burn your feet," which means shoes got through stealing will burn your feet. That's no way of getting shoes. If you want shoes, you have to find some legitimate ways of getting your shoes. Excuse me. She means that shoes bought with stolen money won't be comfortable. She means that Roger won't enjoy wearing shoes that he bought or that he buys with stolen money. The central conflict in this story is between a young boy, and a strong and large woman. Between two characters, so it is regarded as an external conflict. If it was just one character and the conflict was inside this one character, it would be considered as an internal conflict. But this is an external conflict. The boy tries to steal her purse, but as he turns to flee and run away, he falls down, and the woman is able to grab him by his shirt. The main theme of the play, because it's a short story, I think we can only talk of one theme. So the theme in Thank You, Mom is kindness. Even though that the boy tried to steal her purse, she still cared enough for him to give him supper, some respect, and the money he wanted to buy his shoes. From the way Mrs. Jones treated Roger, he learned few things. He learned that some people show kindness when it is unexpected. It wasn't expected of her to show kindness to him at that moment. He just tried to rob her, but instead of being angry at him and getting even violent or calling the police on him, she chose unexpectedly to show kindness. He learns that sometimes people should get a second chance, right? She decided to give him a second chance. He learns that everyone has done something wrong, right? He learns that he shouldn't steal from others to get what he wants. And basically, this is a story, when we think about the story in terms of the Harlem Renaissance and the African American community in the United States, Langston Hughes here is treating a problem that's very serious, that boys, young boys in the African American community basically would have a sane and healthy and successful life if they are shown just a little kindness, right? Like this boy, Roger. He's a thief. He's willing to steal and turn his life into the life of a thief, become a dangerous person to himself, to society, and by simply showing him, by simply showing him some kindness, Mrs. Jones succeeds in turning his life around. He becomes a kind and grateful, respectable and trustworthy individual. That's what a little kindness managed to do. Change a young man from a thief into a trustworthy person, from a thief into a kind, considerate and grateful individual. And I think what Langston Hughes is suggesting here is that young boys in the African American community, especially in, the first half of the 20th century, that if they are shown a little kindness, it will go a long way to changing their lives and changing their conditions and turn them into productive, successful community members. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I'll see you in the next and final lecture, which will be on American drama. Thank you very much and have a good day.